Hey guys, I'm Chris,
And I'm Mike.
and this is No Limits, the Thriller Podcast. What's up today, Mike?
Well, we've got something new, short stories from Andrews and Wilson that are going to be coming out once a month. Pretty cool initiative. But if you want to hear all of our reviews of those short stories and more, keep listening to the Thriller Pod, subscribe on YouTube, and think about joining the Patron Book Club, a special group of the supporters who are the reason we can make more podcasts. If you want to join that elite group and be in the group chat with Chris and I around the clock talking books, head to thrillerpod.com, click on the Patreon tab to learn more. But yeah, Chris, what did you think about our first foray into the Andrews and Wilson short story verse?
Yeah, I think, we've said it a couple times before that, especially I think when we talked about like a short story by Brad. I don't know why authors don't do this more. I mean, I guess I do. Like, they prioritize things that books like sell a lot of money, right? Um But I think there's a big audience, and I'm super excited to go down this journey now with Andrews and Wilson. I think that they're the kind of people that can jump around from genre to genre and have done that within their books. And
Yeah.
now, like, hopefully at the end of this, like they'll be able to sell an anthology of all these short stories composed together. And we're gonna get a little bit into First Ranger, or in a little bit. But I think just to go no spoilers in the beginning, I I loved it. Like I thought I was hooked. And I feel like a short story, should be satisfying. Some of the best short stories I've read, like they're, either they're complete stories and they tell like something, profound and in a very compact way, or like in this case they make you want more. Like
Yep.
they're able to tell like a complete, succinct thing, but it sort of drives you to want more, almost like a epilogue or just a little teaser. And I don't know what their intention is to do with these. If it's just a bunch of, hey, I got 10 ideas, not quite fleshed out to be a book, each of them, but we just got to get them off our chests, and then boom, sign me up.
It's such a unique approach. You're entirely right. But it's a double-edged sword in that I could just devour these things so quickly, and I can't wait to do that. But the biggest problem with this book is it's too short. I want more of
Mm,
it. It's almost
yeah.
the only critique I have of this is I want hours upon hours of this story in this universe with these characters. It's incredible to go back to the American Revolution. I can't think of many thrillers that put you front and center in the history and are also getting the history right. I mean, apparently Knowlton was real, leading this army of Rangers.
Yeah, I looked that up.
I think Prescott was in it, Putnam, Nathaniel Greene might have even been mentioned, all these other power players in Washington's army. And the battle, we're in Breeds Hill, the Battle of Long Island, the Battle of Brooklyn Heights, the storming of Manhattan Island. It's just unreal that we are in a fictional universe in a short story and getting to feel. I felt like I was in the colonial era on the front lines with these guys. It was so visceral and it was done in such a few amount of words. So the only critique is I could have lived in that universe for forever. And I feel shortchanged by the short story. But it really is a unique approach because the other short stories we read, whether you mentioned the one in the Scott Harvath universe, even Chris Howdy, what he did with Insurrection Day with Chaley Hill, they all seem to want to plug in a character we already know and love and kind of like, oh, here's something they were doing during this time period or between these two books. Even Ward Larson, since we mentioned Brad Thor, those two are co-authoring a book next month coming out, Cold Zero. We're going to be talking to them on the pod. Ward Larson did like an origin story short story, so we can
Right.
get the origins of
I've
his
seen that
character.
before from some places too. Yeah.
Yeah, so those are all unique approaches, but this one kind of shatters that whole mold in that these are characters we never met before. Who knows if they're going to write more in this time period with these characters? It's not universe building and plugging in. It's giving you snippets of different universes. And they ultimately say the end goal is Hollywood. I was glad they were very clear about this up front because there was a huge announcement a few months ago how they started their own imprint. Their
Yeah, I
publisher is
saw that.
Blackstone. And yeah, now they have Andrews and Wilson Entertainment. And I was curious about what is this group doing? They're apparently getting other authors like Joshua Hood, Jack Stewart, and even Don Bentley is listed as one of the authors who will be publishing in their imprint. And then they said, we're also using all of our TV and movie and Hollywood connections because the end goal is to get some of these stories on film. And so they were open and saying, these will not be complete stories. You might not even feel satisfied with the ending of some of them.
Yeah,
But it's all on purpose. They're saying,
sure.
because we want to get you hooked so that one day a universe of writers, directors, movie makers, and other storytellers can come into this world and finish it with us. I mean, that's never been done before. That is a really unique approach. So they said to think of it like each of these books is going to be the first act, setting the stage for more. And if you enjoy appetizers as much as a main course, this is right up your alley. They say that right up front in the foreword. So a
That's
unique
a
approach.
yeah, it's a great idea, it's if you think about it, it's kind of I can't even say it. Monetizing your brainstorming, like,
Mm,
if in the sense this is taking your storyboarding or taking, you know, if you wrote a pilot to a story and then turning it into something that you can share with your fans, while also doubling as, hey, this goes on the market. This is what we push to producers. I saw that on their website, Tier One is in like early. I don't know if it's what stage, but it's in development to have a series made after it. The same thing with I think the Shepherd series has been optioned. Someone owns the rights to that. Um, I think their stuff like really like does lend itself to cinema. Um, but yeah, but I want to talk to you a little bit too about like what is why do you think short stories like are authors like so against doing it? Like what's the challenge with the short story? And
mm.
do you think that this one, even going no spoiler free, like do you think this executed as a short story?
No, I think this was executed perfectly and can really be a model. And it's a good question because sometimes we read books and our biggest complaint is they lingered, they were drawn out. It's almost an exercise if you can cut all the fluff, but keep the plot as engaging. If you can cut all the fluff, but keep a crisp pacing and create enough detail that the reader feels immersed in the characters, it almost seems like a perfect vehicle to kind of get ideas out there as opposed to having to trudge through a whole book and very heavy, dense manuscripts and an editing process that can feel unwieldy. Imagine all these new debut authors. I feel like they almost feel like they have to go through that process and that has to be a burden they put upon themselves. But something like this makes me wonder, well, why? Can you like prove your mettle or test your worth with just getting a bunch of short stories out there? Why? I'm sure all authors have them or have jotted down things here and there and then never flesh it out. Well, why not do it in this format? I feel like it's a great idea to dip your toes in the water to get wet. And I think on the reader's perspective, as long as the price is lower, as these are, I
Yeah, how
think it's
much was this book?
I don't even remember.
Is it under $5?
I think it's 5 or 6, maybe
Okay.
5.99, something like that. Unfortunately, though, I think it's a full Audible credit. So
Ooh,
that's a bit
that's
of an issue.
unfortunate.
That's a bit of an issue. But I think you can get the Kindle version of this for relatively cheap. That's a good way to try out an author. And I think an author can really get their name out there, pumping a lot of content. People pay essentially, let's call it half price, from what a real novel would be.
Sure.
But I can see the flip side as well. If somebody's investing time and committing to a book, they're probably willing to spend a couple weeks, however many hours, quite a significant chunk of hours. And so there's the flip side of if you're going to commit to a book, you kind of want it to be complete, you want it to be full. But I don't think that has to be the case for every single book you pick up. There's frankly some books on this pod we read where I say you can cut out 30, 40% of it. Well, why not cut out 70% of it and make it a short story?
Yeah. Like, an abridged version. Yeah. Nah,
Well, no,
but
maybe not in a bridge because then I think you're making sacrifices, right? Where
sure.
this is a different approach that says, without making sacrifices, I'm going to do everything the story requires, but I'm just going to do it in a way that's more digestible.
Yeah, and I think, and we can begin to go into spoiler territory soon, but I think, especially with this one, for me, a quality short story has to be able to stand upon itself and then be able to get us engaged in the characters quickly, not rely on like a bunch of, it has to build the character relationship with us like right off the bat.
Yep.
And I think it's a smart choice choosing to do someone who is a figure that you could look up, after the fact, like not trying to make like some character from whole cloth, um, or having a character that doesn't really, is kind of amorphous. And then you have to have this engaging, propulsive, like 1 to 2 set pieces,
Yep.
and then boom, you're good. Like, because with this one, we're at the Battle of Bunker Hill in the very beginning, right?
Yeah.
And then we move to, we move quickly through like the ranks, and then culminate with, sort of this final piece at the end. Um, and it does leave you wanting more, but in total, they did a good job telling, the brief story of this, Nathaniel, um, what was the last name?
Thomas
Why am I
Knowlton
blanking? Yeah,
was,
oh yeah,
I think it was
I don't
Thomas
know what I
Knowlton.
said. Nathaniel Knowlton. Yeah. So yeah, do you want to get into a little bit of the spoilers with that?
Yeah, for sure. Before we really drop that spoiler alert, though, I was also very happy because the other thing that's going to make this work, which I wasn't sure when you do all these different stories and you just keep pumping them out, is there any through line? Are they going to have
Mm,
any connection at all? And what I like is the connection is not within the plot or the universe of the story. The connection is who Andrews and Wilson are.
sure.
So they say right up front, and I'll quote this from that foreword. Andrews and Wilson Entertaining embodies the storytelling ethos of team and mission before self to showcase heroes with a moral compass who risk their lives for a higher purpose, men and women forced to make difficult choices in difficult times. The type of stories that honor sacrifices of those who put themselves in harm's way to keep their friends, family, or their community safe. Like, First Ranger does that perfectly. The Shepherd series, perfect. Tier 1, perfect. Sons of Valor, that
Yeah.
like they are
The-
spot on. They know their mission, they know who they are, and they stay true to it.
when I was reading this, I was like, this is as if, the authors of Sons of Valor wrote The Patriot,
Oh,
like,
completely. Yeah.
if they had their take on, essentially turning The Patriot into a written story, it, it's sung Andrews and Wilson so hard, but yet it's in like this
Yep.
totally new genre of being this colonial times and stuff like that, and having like real life characters. They do uh, they make up this other character, Remington, or no, Browning. What's the firearms guy?
Uh,
Moses Browning? Is that?
Browning. Yeah.
Yeah, but they give him a new name, but it comes like I thought, oh, I didn't realize Browning was back and then Browning came like a much later, so they do take some license in putting like a fictional character there, who eventually does come up with a
Yeah.
real guns, but
But that is part of something else they do that's very much within the at least the Sons of Valor universe, which is the tech. Just
sure.
look at the
Oh
cover of
yeah,
a look at the cover of an Andrews and Wilson book about how those operators are just absolutely kitted out. Even the Shepherd series, I remember like the 3D augmented reality type stuff they do. They're always on the cutting edge of tech. And I was like, historical book, how the heck are they going to pull that off? Oh my God. They've got the first sniper. They have a group of dudes hanging around thinking to put a looking glass on top of a rifle or a musket.
invent the sniper essentially.
They invent, what was it, semi automatic weapons?
Oh
Well,
right, by
the bad
by
guys
like
do.
adjusting it to fire more quickly. Yeah,
Oh, without having to have the muzzle loaded cartridge. Yeah, exactly. I just thought that it's so crazy because if you don't know anything about these guys, you could write that and be like, oh, that's kind of a cheap way to kind of put that in. But no, it's like it's so Andrews and Wilson and it
no,
works
it
in the
is.
story.
Yeah,
And it gives our heroes the advantage. So they invent something and that's all because of the teamwork. Like when Knowlton had to approach the guys in that circle who were doing this, he could have been a pompous asshole who shut them down, tell them they're dumb, they're just underlings, stop wasting equipment. Because they even I think wasted a few. They messed up something. It was like they had such a short supply of weapons, and he was like, "No, you have access to keep doing this. Here's another one." And I think that embodies the storytelling of sacrifice and trust in the team, and that's just what Andrews and Wilson have always been about.
yeah, very true.
We're wading into spoiler territory here, so what else did you think about Knowlton and his family, and ultimately the ending from start to finish? I think his family, who we only see in chapter 1 and in the
Sure.
epilogue, or whatever you call it in short story format, that was kind of a good way to bookend it. Whereas if you write a full length novel, I feel like you have to keep coming back to the family. You have to keep playing the domestic front card. You have to have their relationship pop up every once in a while, the ups and downs, the turmoil. I think here it just kind of worked as a nice little bookend to it.
Yeah, no, it sets up the story. It obviously sets up his motivations. Um, you know, he's a family man, sets up his values, that kind of stuff. You get the sense that this guy is a father, is a leader, cares not only for his family, but also cares for like these guys who are just, ragtag bunch of people who are, eventually he becomes really good friends with that one guy who essentially is like shitting his pants at Bunker Hill, right?
Yeah.
But ultimately, like through that action and by leading these men, begins to create a relationship that quickly achieves it. That scene really quickly establishes what we are to know about Knowlton, right? Like that
Yeah.
he is this guy who um will go first, and it like, ultimately it leads us to that first infiltration into like the British camp for him to like boldly uh you know go in under the cover of dark, wearing a red coat, trying to get in. And then he is not going to lead from behind. He was going to
Yeah.
lead from the front.
Yeah. No, completely. And that was such a cool angle to take because this also reminisced of spy thrillers and espionage books. And how would you even consider putting that in this time period? And he pulled that off the way Knowlton was willing to go behind lines and, frankly, be unconventional. And ultimately, that's why Washington appoints him to be the leader, to be
Hmm.
the first ranger. Is he's willing to use unconventional or asymmetrical warfare. I was wondering if in some of those conversations, a historian might roll their eyes because they seem to be using language that describes kind of modern day battlefield tactics, of course, that Andrews and Wilson are so versed in from their personal lives and their research for books. So I don't know what a historian would say about the veracity of that, talking about asymmetrical warfare and whatnot. Possibly that's how conversations would have went back then, but that to me felt like a bridge between, modern day war and this colonial era, and
So
how
I
that
wanted.
clashed. Sorry, I was just going to say how that clashed with the British established protocols of gentlemen's warfare.
Mm,
And so many conversations, both with Washington and then ultimately we saw with General Howe on the other side, they thought what Knowlton, the Americans were doing was so below British standards, it was so ungentlemanly. And yet at the same time, how else are you going to win a revolution against the most powerful force on the history of the world?
yeah, I wanted to. I mean, I know not you're a history teacher, but you're geography, right? Is that is that true? Like, is it before like this time, like there was this sort of unspoken code that you don't shoot officers that are just,
Yeah,
like, is there like a gentlemanly way to how people fought back then?
No, of course. Yeah. No, I can't speak to the specifics of if you target officers and whatnot, but absolutely. I mean, eh, that completely was the way. That's why in all these movies, the line approaches, everyone's walking, everyone's playing their music, playing their hymns, and then you only fire when ready, and the enemy's assembled, and you're assembled. There was almost like this unwritten code of conduct. It's almost this dance you play.
Mm,
And I think that was just a kind of a British mindset from the colonial era that they felt how they dignify themselves. And so I think there was this gentleman's warfare. And so I liked when that kept coming up because that reminded me of true history, even without knowing all the ins and outs of it. That there definitely was this ethos of gentleman's war. And this is how we fight dignified and by going behind enemy lines, by it's sniping people, right? By shooting from
right.
afar. All of that I think is grounded in real history for sure.
Even so much as going to say that like spies were like everyone hated
The
spies.
worst of
Spies
the
were the
worst.
the worst of the worst. Yeah.
Trash. Yeah. No, that also rang true to me for sure.
Hmm.
That made sense. You're right though. It felt just like The Patriot. My goodness.
Yeah.
Some of these themes also come up in The Patriot.
Yeah. Ultimately, we culminate with this, pretty crazy scene at the end where we get that Ferguson rifle, which I looked up, obviously was one of a revolutionary British flintlock breech loading
Mm.
designed by the Scottish.
Oh, and so
Not
even the Scott
until
connection was true?
yeah, he was
Wow.
Ferguson was Scottish, a Scottish officer. Um and it allowed for rapid firing up to 6 to 7 rounds per minute.
Wow. Yeah, that's what they say. I remember the first time it was used on the battlefield, they were, like, flabbergasted. Like,
Yeah, because they hear a shot and then immediately like he's like, "Whoa, that's coming from the same direction."
yeah. What is
So
this
it's got
devilry?
yeah, exactly. I mean, you ever think about that? How like if you could go back in time and you brought like an AK-47 to like Sparta, like
Dude, y insane. Yeah. The one I even think about, like, what was it like to the Mesoamerican people seeing armor and people riding horses and
Mm,
shields and even muskets, like, they literally thought this was the gods, you know?
sure.
And they're on ships, these massive ships. That just blows my mind.
Yeah, you don't think I don't think about these things every now and then, but like yeah, like when I was reading this, it really like highlighted, wow, they you know, and now thinking back to all the Civil War, or not Civil War, but all the Revolutionary War movies that I've seen where they're, shoving the
Yep,
thing down, shooting it,
exactly.
and then they have to fall back and shoving it. Like,
Yep.
battle has changed over
But
over
to
the
learn those
centuries.
things, like, however they knew this and this information, to learn that and put it in a novel, or in this case, a short story, like, that's so cool. That to be an author, to do that, it's just what a wonderful skill. Like, you learn all these little nuggets of history. Well, imagine being the person who actually sits down and takes that nugget and fleshes out a whole story around it and characters. And there was this book, I don't know if it's where they got it from, but Washington Spies. I wanted to read
Mm.
it, but it's America's first spy ring and how Washington kind of commissioned it.
Did you see the TV show?
Oh no, they turned it into a show.
Hmm. Yeah, there was a TV show. I think it was on like AMC or something like that.
Oh, I'm seeing that now. I wonder how much things like that they borrowed from or gave them the impetus to include these specific characters. Interesting.
Yeah, and I guess what I really like about this book is like the idea of I feel like in any one of Andrews and Wilson's readers who have read would likes Tier One, likes Shepherds, likes Sons of Valor, you would want to read the story about how like the first, essentially first special operators like came to be, right?
Right.
These guys that would come in and do things, they had to think on their own, outside of a chain of command,
Yeah.
not to just. He even mentions that, right? Like I'm not, most people would sit there and wait to be told to fire, but he was looking for people that would, you know, move, fire, like
Yep.
not wait for his command.
Yeah, completely. And then there's that scene where another guy takes over and makes a call in the battle, and how
To
traditionally
go like
you would
somewhere
never
else,
do
right?
that.
Yeah,
Right, you would never be
right.
empowered to move the team or make that call if your leader is still on his feet and alive. And he's like, "No, we trust each other. If my teammate is making that call, it was the right call for all of us," you know? And you just know that in your bones. That's such a strong connection between the books we read about to today, and now he's putting that in the American Revolution of how we got the edge over the British. It's incredible to be able to do that. That's a skill.
What did you think about Knowlton's death?
Yeah, I was wondering if they were gonna do it. So here's where that forward with them saying some of these will be unfinished stories caught me off guard, because I was expecting, okay, we're going to end the story and it's going to feel like a hard cut and we're not going to
Sure.
see any conclusion. Well, obviously his son now, his teenage son was involved and is the man of the house, if you will. So I think there's a possibility of transitioning the story and keeping it alive. But I was shocked that they went that far in this short story. I thought that would be an opportunity to kill him, see his ending, his death later on. So yeah, no, it was shocking to me that it actually happened. I loved how we ended with the family. What a heartbreaking scene. We haven't even been on page with them very much, a couple paragraphs, page or two in the beginning of the story. But then to end it with them getting that message felt so visceral, so powerful. And again, to connect to the modern day and the warriors and their families going through this, that knock on the door, right? Seeing somebody pull up. knowing what that means, that is timeless. That's eternal. That the grief and the feeling, knowing what's coming when that announcement is when that knock is made at the door. And so I feel like that was again another parallel to our world today that they captured so well in a story of the past. So shocking. It was shocking that they did it. It was shocking how emotionally invested I was in the family hearing the news.
Yeah, I feel like they did like, they left enough meat on the bone that, like, there could be plenty more stories in between, him getting recruited to his death that you can plug in if you were gonna turn this into some sort of mini series or some sort of, um I don't know if you can get multiple seasons out of something, but, a long form television show like this or, even a movie, like, so.
Yeah, you could also fill in the in-betweens because that's another minor critique is the time jumps of,
Oh,
like,
very big time jumps, right?
I understand they went back to Lexington and Concord because Knowlton was right across the border in Connecticut and would have you wanna see the messengers coming, spreading the word about that, getting the militia together. So, it's like a really gripping way to start, but then we just jump to Breeds Hill or Bunker Hill, it's like, okay, there's a little bit of a gap there. And then after that, that just seemed like an action scene just to establish Knowlton as a warrior and as a leader,
Right.
and then boom, we have to cut to Long Island where Washington is calling him in, and then we're in Brooklyn. So it's just like it almost bounced too quickly between these major points of the war, which made sense when you don't have a lot of time, but you could see the in between. Like you can
Oh,
definitely
yeah.
see the retreats and being chased and like in the camps, you could flesh that out and spend a little more time in between these battles because this just makes you think it was rapid fire, one battle after the next after the next. And I think there was a little more time than that in between.
Yeah. No, exactly.
So that's an opportunity to flesh it out more too.
And there was something about, let me look this up.
Another history tidbit.
Yeah. Something about, did they mention in the book about like, the reason why we have like some sort of, signage or like all special operators or rangers have something, or did I read that somewhere? Anyways,
Oh, I
you,
don't
you,
know.
oh, the Knowlton Award.
Oh,
1995 Military Intelligence established the Thomas W. Knowlton Award, which recognizes
mm,
individuals who have contributed significantly to the promotion of an Army military intelligence in ways that stand out in the eyes of the recipients, their superiors, and subordinate peers. Yeah, now this is what I read
wow.
about. The Knowlton Award, which actually contains the coat of arm of Thomas Knowlton. So
Oh, wow. And that was established in 95, you said?
1995. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wow. That's pretty cool. Never heard of that. And it could be any branch as long as you contribute to military intelligence.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, another one, I believe it could have been the wax seal on a letter, or maybe how she knew the letter wasn't from her husband was that it didn't have the right seal. And it said the seal was the Washington coat of arms, which is pretty cool with the stars and the stripes. Well, that's the DC flag. That's
Right.
where we get the DC flag from was the Washington coat of arms. So when I read that, I was like, oh, just another awesome little super nugget. Oh, and uh, in the Battle of Bunker Breeds Hill, the "Don't fire until you see the whites of their eyes" actual quote. And I think they had Knowlton relay it or one of the superiors relay it. And it could have been, there's a debate of if it's Israel Putnam or William Prescott or which general actually said the line, but they eventually relay it down the line and Prescott and Knowlton has to say it out to the troops, don't fire until you see the whites of their eyes. So that's one of those possibly apocryphal lines, but that's always contributed um, to that battle that was one of the famous sayings and they put that right in the book. So there's just so many of these little things. I'm sure we're missing a bunch of them too.
Yeah, no, I really, we weren't quite sure what this was going to be,
Yeah,
but I take my $5 every month. I'm ready for it.
I agree. I may or may not have said it's possibly a money grab to try to just push out more content, but
Hey, at
100%. I
least
take that
the
back. I was
story
just
was good.
no, you're right. I was just throwing that out there because I did not know what to expect. So I was just saying it's within the realm of possibilities that this is just trying to move more content. And in the end, if that is a smart business decision
Sure.
because they're easily digestible. You're willing to come back for once a month. That's perfectly timed out. And the price is right. I think if I'm not mistaken with that price, let's double check it. I While this book is worth full price of a full novel, it's that good. $4.99 on Kindle, yeah, that's what it is. I mean, you can't go wrong if you want a quick read every month.
The audiobook was really good too.
The audiobook was great. Now,
I
yeah,
really
that's interesting. Are you going to get the same person to do all these short stories? Are they going to bump around?
I don't know. I wanted to look
Yeah,
up to see who that
he was really good. And I wonder if
that
they've worked with
guy
him in the
was.
past, if he's done any other books.
Read by Bradford Hastings.
Hmm. Has he done any Andrews and Wilson stuff before?
I'm looking that up now on Audible. No.
Hmm.
He's got some R.L. Stein, some Brian Nelson, J.J. Miller.
Hmm. Okay, here's good
Yeah,
news.
no.
You could get it on Audible without using a credit. So it's one credit, or you can buy on Audible for $7. Oh, okay. A credit may not be worth it because that could be like $15 a month with your subscription. But if you could also buy the audiobook at a reduced price, it's currently $7.33. That's a perfect price point. So yeah, I think this is a really good deal for readers and a
The
good
the whole
business model
Audible
for them.
the whole Audible credit thing boggles my mind because it's like $15, but I could get a Game of Thrones novel, which I think the Audible, like if you were to buy those outright, those are like almost $40.
Yeah.
But you could get it with one Audible credit.
Well, that's because they want you to get the subscription and then forget to cancel your subscription and, rack up credits. But then on the flip side, they occasionally have sales where a book like this one would go below $15, which is the price of a credit a month. So they also do run these sales every once in a while. Like I got most of the Gray Man books for $5 or $6 when they were running a sale. So
Oh, nice.
yeah, it's a weird business model, this Audible thing. And Everand, another service we use, is doing some sort of monthly credit. They call it an unlock. You can get an unlock from their
And then
premium
I was listening to
category.
this guy on Instagram, which everything on Instagram is real. He was telling me that it is actually illegal for Amazon to take away your credits. You know how like they were saying if you don't like use your credits by
Right.
like that is illegal what they're doing.
Ooh, they can't expire your credits. Remind me of that when I'm
You
chatting
paid for it.
Rufus AI to get my money back.
Yeah, I'll send you that guy's he has this whole fight against Amazon right now because he caught on the Ring camera a delivery truck
Just throwing.
like sideswiping his car, like damaging it pretty much, and Amazon just is not returning his phone calls.
Oh my God.
So he's like going scorched earth, like showing you how to track like the hidden price of everything and how like most things like tend to spike right before Prime Day
Oh,
and then come down, like
Oh,
all that
Prime
kind of
Day is a
stuff.
farce.
Oh
Prime Day
yeah.
is an absolute farce. I remember the first Prime Day, I was excited. I was like, wow, what are we going to get? What do we need around the house? And then prices just got jacked up and they told me it's 60% off and it was more expensive than usual. It's
Yeah.
like what? Yeah. The moral of this story is companies and billionaires are not always the good guys, if you didn't know
Yeah.
that already.
Support your local bookstores, guys.
Dude, good stuff. This was a fun story. I wasn't sure what to expect. If this is the quality that we're going to get in these stories, I'm reading them every month. So
Yeah.
hats off. The next one is Sledgehammer. Total different story. Looks like a former CIA ground branch team leader and Green Beret, a former husband, a former father. Ooh, but at least his dog Blue still appreciates him.
Okay.
Already, I don't even know what it's about, but that sounds like something I'm interested in. So we'll get
These
that
come
one in
out at
February.
the beginning of every month.
I think so. Let's see if this one has a date. Oh, January 20th. Oh, came out today. Look at that. Sledgehammer available now.
Cool.
Good stuff. Anything else?
No, man, I think for you guys go and read Cold Zero, or if you or no, I guess you can't. It hasn't
It's not
become
out yet.
available yet.
Yeah.
Go pre-order your copy of Cold Zero. We're going to be talking to Brad and Ward at the same time, right?
Yes. Yes, sir.
So we'll be giving you our interview with them as well as covering that book. Mike's done with The Killer. I'm about halfway done with The Killer, so we're gonna do an episode on The Killer by
Tom Wood.
Tom Wood.
Something a little different.
Intriguing book. Like it's different. I like it. It's different. That's all I'll give you for now.
Yeah. We'll get there.
But yeah, besides that, we need to thank our patrons, our Deputy Director, Sherry F., and Brad E., our special agents, Adam, Mike, Ben, Daryl, George, Matt, Don, and Chris. Subscribe, rate, and review to all 3 seasons of No Limits. You can find us at thrillerpod.com or on Twitter and Instagram at thrillerpodcast. And as always, just let Knowlton be Knowlton.